to start it? Oh, okay, hopefully Skylar comes back. All right. Let's go ahead and read that article about the Syrian children and how the war there is affecting them. Okay? So, like we talked about, there's a war happening in Syria. It started with an anti-government day of rage on March 15th, 2011. Today, the conflict in Syria is entering its 8th year, but really its 10th now because this is a couple years old. The 7 long and bloody years of war have left a country in ruins, thousands dead and maimed, or the future of millions of children in doubt. More than 8 million children have been directly affected by the conflict, 6 million of them inside Syria, and another 2.6 million who are registered refugees in other countries. We talked about this word yesterday. What is a refugee? What does that mean?
Someone who wants refuge?
That is right. They do need refuge, but what does a refuge mean?
They're from another country.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that very well. Say it again.
They're from another country.
They're from another country because there's a war happening, right? They need safety. So these people needed safety, so they went to another country to help get out of the war. So we don't need to look at those images. We'll see a few. So for the 7th anniversary, we're going to look at some statistics and 7 ways that the children of Syria have just been in trouble. So our first one is that children have been killed or injured. This is a major one. We see a lot of it still now. 2007 was the deadliest year for children in Syria, with 910 children killed. 361 were injured, according to UNICEF, which is a world organization. That's 50% more than the previous year. In the first 2 months of 2018 alone, the United Nations Children's Agency said that 1,000 children were reportedly killed or injured in intensifying violence. So there's all kinds of bombings and shootings and all kinds of things happening in Syria. And so within the first 2 months of 2018, 1,000 children were killed or hurt. But the UK-based Syrian Observatory from Human Rights put the figures much higher. Since the start of the conflict, so 8 years ago since this article, it says that 19,811 children have been killed. Tens of thousands of children have also been left with permanent war-related impairments, including many of those whose injuries have led to amputations. So it's pretty sad. This is in Syria, so Middle East. It's kind of close to Sierra Leone, where Michaela DePrince was an orphan, where she was born. How can we relate this part to our story? Is there a way that we can relate it?
Yeah,
How so?
because it's saying that lots of children are like getting injured and dying, and some of these children are injured.
They are, yep. And then it doesn't directly say this, but a lot of these children were probably hurt by bombings. That's one of the major things that's happening in Syria. How can we relate a bombing to our story? There was one specific detail. Do you remember it from the story?
The car looks
There
like
was
it was bombed or something.
Well, no, the story, not just this picture, but our Michaela DePrince story from yesterday. Do you guys remember what happened to the orphanage?
It got bombed.
It got bombed. There was a bomb threat on it, so all the children had to leave, and that's kind of how they ended up being adopted, Michaela DePrince and her friend. So this type of thing was going to happen to the orphanage where they were going to get bombed, but they were able to escape at least that part. Let's look at our next one. Attacks on the schools. This is a school in Syria. Um, it's this, what is it called? The picture has a caption. It says that many schools are not being repaired due to the high probability that they may get targeted and damaged again. So instead of fixing the school, they just kind of leave it in ruins because they know that it's probably going to get bombed again. So it's not really worth it to them to fix it up. They just kind of leave it, which is really sad. If this school is, can you imagine going to school here? First of all,
No.
no, like that it would kind of be awful to have to go to school here. I don't know for sure, but they might actually have students in these classrooms just hoping that they don't get bombed again. It's kind of sad.
What happens if it rains?
It probably floods the inside. They might have abandoned this school. There might be other ones that are in better shape. So this might be an abandoned one. I don't know for sure. It doesn't say. So in the UN verified 2,909 grave violations against children last year, including 89 attacks on schools. So that means that there were 89 bombings or shootings or just attacks in general on schools in Syria, which is not great. So can you imagine going to school and just all of us, well, I mean, it kind of happens in the US every once in a while. Going to school and then suddenly like you're in lockdown and have to try and fend for your life in those situations.
I think one time we had a practice lockdown.
Yeah, we've probably had practice lockdowns for sure. We'll probably have them once school starts here.
I remember having a practice lockdown in 3rd grade.
We probably did. We have
Did
them.
we have lockdowns in online school?
No, because you're at home, and if there was a threat at this school, like right now, we would, like the teachers would go into lockdown, but we would just like end our Google Meet so that there was no sound coming from the computers or anything, and do the lockdown stuff at the school, whereas you guys would just stay at home.
Some of us are there.
Yeah, the ones that are here will do the lockdown procedures, but if you are at home, we'll just kick you out of our Google Meets so that you're not talking and giving away locations. You know? Yeah. So one of the major things in Syria is that they're attacking the schools, and that's really affecting the children because it's disrupting their education. They're not getting a solid education anymore.
Can we play the video?
Yeah. We can do that. Let me unplug my headphones so you guys can hear it.
Okay. We can't hear it because you're mute.
All right, let's try that again.
Okay.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me? Okay. You might hear Mr. Turner talking in the background a little bit, but that's okay.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Do you guys know what it means if something is shelled?
No.
Like lock down and having to run for your own safety.
I mean,
So-
they're going to have to after it's shelled. Being shelled is when it's bombed,
Like
basically.
stay in place?
You know, it's like being bombed because bombs have a shell around them, so they call it being shelled.
Okay.
Yeah.
وما في كان يروح على مشفى كبير وشيء يعمل ضرب وجهه. قال شاف قال بدي اشيل الفرق شو تسوي. أنا ماضي كتير شوت كتير استوعب صغري يعني ملاحظة بتقولي لي إياها مرة واحدة شكلك أحلى عم يركب لك إياهم كلمة وعم يستخدم حقهم وأنا صايرة عم بقدر أعمل شيء common. We have more refugee children here. We can get help. We can have more children here, Syrian children. أنا أقرأ ثلاثة. هو هلا شوف بيجي من المدرسة دغري ما بيرضى ما بياكل ولا بيشرب واحد بس يحط برا قبل ما يشرب بدون وظائف لا الحمد لله بالنسبة للمستقبل الحمد لله ولا اللي عم يجي عم أعرفه بس الحمد لله ما مشيت خطوة له ولا ميسرة
Alrighty. Let me get my headphones plugged back in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a sad video, right? But it very much describes what's happening to a lot of children in Syria. So he was born 2 months after the war started, and then they had to escape. They are now refugees in Lebanon, which is really close to Syria. They just kind of hopped a country over. And because of the war and the bombings that were happening, the little boy lost his left hand. It had to be amputated, and he has hearing problems because of it. So he goes to a special school in Lebanon. But that's just like one example of things that are happening to these kids. It's not great. Can you? I mean, not a lot of us can relate to a conflict like that, can we?
Mhm.
No.
Which is good. We live in a country where it's not plagued by war, which is nice. But it's also sad to see all the other countries that do have these issues.
Mhm.
So that's another thing that's happening with Syria. These children's educations are being interrupted quite a bit, which is sad. Another thing, a lot of these kids, just like in the video, them and their families have to flee from their homes. They can't stay in Syria. They have to travel somewhere else. Neighboring countries like Turkey, Lebanon, things like that, they have to escape and become refugees in other countries because they
Have
can't.
some of them ever moved to the U.S.?
Yeah, we have some Syrian refugees, yep. I don't know where or how many, though. We'd have to look that up. So, another one is that they're more vulnerable to risks. So, things, let's just read this one. Refugee children, particularly those who are out of school, are vulnerable to many risks, including isolation, discrimination, and different forms of exploitation. That can include early marriage, child labor, and recruitment by armed forces or criminals. So they go become refugees in other countries. A lot of them are orphans as well at this point. A lot of girls are forced into early marriages. Children in general,
Why?
because there's no parents.
You're muted. Miss Jones, you're muted.
Can you?
Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why. It just like unplugged. But a lot of these children get forced into early marriages because they're orphans and they don't have parents really to protect them from something like that. So they don't know how to get out of the situation. Same with the child labor. They are forced to work because they're in a different country. They don't have money. They're trying to survive in a different country. And then some of the ones again that are orphans get forced into the other countries' militaries or into lives of crime. It's not great for them, but they just don't have people to protect them, really. So they get forced into these different unfortunate ways of life. Okay. And then our last one, living in is this our last one? Nope, not our last one. Living in poverty. This is kind of a big one. We have people in America that are living in poverty. They're very poor, but this is almost like a whole new level just because their houses get bombed, they lose their house, they have to move countries, they don't have anywhere to go, anywhere to live, they don't really get to bring their money, so they just get forced into this life of living super below the poverty line and having almost nothing.
What's
Right?
poverty mean?
It means you're super like really poor.
Oh,
Yeah, like so it says right here that you don't have 2 of the 5 basic needs. So to qualify as living in poverty, you aren't able to have access to education. Your health is really poor. You don't have access to any sort of water or sanitation things like the ability to have running water. You don't have any child protection or child safety. So those are some major things that say you're below the poverty line. Okay. And then I think this last one, our last one, is that they suffer from some toxic stress. So this is things um, like there's just so much happening around them that they're constantly in a state of like stress. They are sometimes forced out of their homes. They're always in fear of being forced out of their homes or being bombed at school or things like that. There's a lot of neglect and abuse for these children because the parents are trying to make money, keep them safe, but they also can't be at home with them. There's a lot of poverty and hunger that goes around just because if you're poor, you usually can't afford all the food. So there's a lot of hunger in Syria too. So these are kind of some big major things that are happening in Syria right now with these children. Can we relate any of them over to our story with Michaela DePrince?
yeah.
How so? How can we relate that stuff to Michaela DePrince?
They were being bombed. There were orphans, and that's all I can think of.
You're on the right track. Anybody else have anything? How else can we relate this to Michaela DePrince? Any other ideas? No? Alrighty. Let's go ahead and open up our story then. So go ahead and take a minute, open up our Michaela DePrince story. Oh, good, Phil. They were constantly scared too. Yeah. When Michaela DePrince was living in Sierra Leone, she was constantly afraid of what was going to happen to her, right? Mad, angry, all those things. All right. Go ahead and open up Savis and get Michaela DePrince opened for me. And when you're there, just give me like a I'm done, just so I know. Cool. You might have already had it open from earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had it open the whole time.
That's fine. We'll wait a minute just to let everybody else get there. Can you guys hear the leaf blower in the background?
No.
Good. I definitely can.
Miss Jones, I got here like 10 minutes ago. Did I miss anything like big?
No, we haven't
No.
done anything on the assignment. We just read an article
You didn't
about
miss anything.
the Syrian war and how that war is affecting children so that we could relate it back to how Michaela DePrince might have felt as a child.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to start filling out some stuff now. Okay, so just go ahead and get that open.
Where are we
I don't know
gonna
how
go
far
to?
with it. Huh?
Like, where are we gonna go on?
We're going to be in our making meaning.
Okay. I mean, like, what under that? Because I know we're gonna do making meaning because we didn't finish it.
Technically, we just did the part about research, so we're going to skip that one. And we're going to go to close read the text. So
Okay.
making meaning, close read is the one we're going to be under. So I'll give you guys a minute to go ahead and get that one open. Let me know when you're there. They're literally standing directly outside the window and like blowing the leaves right there. I don't know how you guys can't hear this.
I didn't do media connection with Miss Dolphinies yesterday.
That's okay.
I did media
supposed to
connection
do
on
it?
my own. Also,
That's
I can use the leaf blower. It sounds weird.
Huh?
The leaf blower. It sounds
Oh.
weird.
Yeah, like a loud like.
Jones,
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's up?
Miss Jones, were we supposed to do media connection?
No, I told Miss Daphne that if you guys did not have the time to skip media connection, so the major ones that hopefully you guys got to do was concept vocab, first read, and the comprehension check.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Good. So that's where you should be done and up to. We're going to skip the research part and go to close read the text. Okay, are we good? Are we ready to do those ones?
Yep.
Anybody else besides Charles ready?
I guess not.
Bradford's ready. Cool.
I'm ready.
Cool. All right. Let's go ahead and look at it then. So this one, making meaning, close read the text. There's one thing to do here on the notebook. We've done it before, where we just kind of throw out any questions that we might have about this story that maybe we can answer later, any conclusions that we've made. So let's start with any questions. When we read this and we talk about this story, is there any sort of questions that come to mind about her life or what happened to her?
Did she ever get injured?
Okay. Did she ever get injured? That's good. Like, do you mean in a bombing or doing ballet?
And like in the war, like when she's in the orphanage, or like at all in her life? That's
Okay,
that
so did she ever
deal
get
with the
injured in
war.
the war or after she came to the US? That's a good question. I don't actually know the answer to that. We can always look it up too after. Any other questions you guys might have had reading about this?
I'm done typing it out.
That's good. I'll give you guys a second. Just checking some attendance. All right, so any other questions you guys might have about Michaela DePrince or her story or anything?
Not that I can think of.
No? Anyone else? If someone was talking, it was not very clear, unfortunately. Maybe type it instead. I don't know what was said.
It was Phil, I think.
Okay. Yeah, you might have to type it, Phil. It was really choppy. I didn't get to hear it.
It wasn't
Oh,
me.
it wasn't Phil. All right. That's fine. All right. What about any conclusions we can draw? Maybe anything about her life that we can say for sure was good or bad, or any sort of conclusions from her story?
I don't know.
What about so her life started off as not so great. So what can we conclude about starting as a child in war and then coming to the US?
How good of a ballerina was she?
Okay. As a question, so is she a good ballerina? I'll make sure I spell it right. So one of the conclusions that I think we can probably make, so her life started off pretty hard. She's an orphan in an orphanage. She has a skin disorder. But what can we conclude about her life now? Do you think it's as hard?
No.
No. So we conclude that her life started hard, but has turned around for the better. Right? Once she got adopted, she kind of started to have a bit of a better life in the U.S. Okay, I'll give you guys a minute or so to type this one out. Alright, about 30 more seconds, and then we're gonna go on to the next section. We're gonna see if we can finish making meaning today. Got about 20 minutes. Alrighty. I'm going to go ahead and close this part about the close read. The only questions we had, or the only notebook we had to fill out was what questions and what conclusions we had. So I'm going to close that one. So we are going to do the analyze text now. So near the bottom, analyze the text, not crafted structure. Analyze the text. Okay, so go ahead and open up that one. We are in groups, technically, but it's still not exactly the type of groups that this wants it to be. When it wants you guys to do small groups with these stories, they want it to be like groups of like 3 or 4 students working really close together and like reading through it and doing these activities together, but that's just not possible with online learning. So we're going to kind of keep doing this part together versus that, but you guys can always discuss it too. So analyze the text. That's a tip on how to be a good group member. It says complete the activities and cite textual evidence to support your answer. So number 1, review and clarify. With your group, reread paragraph 17 of the selection. So let's go ahead and scroll over and read paragraph 17. All right. Paragraph 17 says, I was looking at people's feet because I thought everyone has to have ballet point shoes. They have to have point shoes because they're people from the U.S. So, people from the U.S., right? Why do you think Michaela thought that everyone from the U.S. would have point shoes? What do you think?
Because she saw maybe she saw like she saw some ballerina clothes and they were really good that she thought, and like everyone else had to have them because they looked really good.
Okay, where did she see that? Do you guys remember what she saw the ballerina stuff in?
Like through a glass window or something in a
No,
store.
not a glass window.
Like in a store.
No,
That's
it
what
wasn't
I
a store at
imagined.
all. No, it tells us where she first saw a ballerina. Do you guys remember where that was?
In a ballerina's place.
Nope. Right here, paragraph 12.
A magazine.
Mm-hmm. The first time she saw a ballerina was in a magazine. And she just assumed that everybody from the United States would be in ballet shoes. Why? Why do we think that? Kayla thought. Well, Michaela thought everyone from the U.S. would be in point shoes because think about the U.S. versus other countries right now that might be at war. The differences between them. What kind of differences do we have between these two countries?
Because she saw it in a magazine.
Okay, so she saw it in a magazine. All right. Think about so Michaela was an orphan. She lived in poverty. She was very poor. What is the difference between some people, well, most people right now living in Syria or Sierra Leone and the United States when it comes to that?
United States of America.
Okay. What kind of thoughts can you have about Michaela and what she thinks of the United States? So she's living in a third world country that's in war. How do you think she looks at the United States? What sort of ideas would she have about the US?
She might have heard that it's a free country, so people could do whatever they want.
Okay, so yeah, let's keep going along those lines. The US, like people here aren't living in war, right? So Michaela would have thought that the US was a free country, which it is. We do live in a free country. And that think about the poverty line and what we talked about, how there's people that live in poverty in the US, but not as many people that live in Syria.
Just go.
Maybe we can go to the skate park afterwards. That sound fun?
So Michaela could have thought that the US was a free country and that everyone there has money. It's kind of where we're going with this. The idea that the United States is a free country, everybody here is rich and can do whatever they would like to, versus a third world country that might have war all the time, not a lot of money, and it's just very poverty stricken. Okay. Give you about 30 seconds to fill that one out, and then I want to go on to our next section, finish it up for the day. Alrighty, how are we doing? Ready to move on to our last section here?
No.
They're all 0 except for that.
Not yet? Alright. Take about 1 more minute. Alrighty. I'm gonna go ahead and close this one. We're actually not gonna do this last part right here, number 3. You can do it if you'd like to, totally fine. We're actually gonna skip it so that we can keep going. So I'm gonna close the analyze the text part, and we're gonna do the analyze craft and structure. So we're still under making meaning. We're going to do that very last section. Analyze, craft, and structure. Okay. We're going to finish this one up for the day. This one will be one of your graded activities, so I'm not going to help you out too much. We'll discuss what you need to put in each box and all of these things, but I'm going to have you guys do them on your own. So, it says biographical writing. When a nonfiction text tells a story, it is a work of narrative fiction. Biographical writing is one type of narrative fiction. In biographical writing, an author tells the story of another person's life. So this is exactly what this type of writing is. This story is about Michaela DePrince, but someone else wrote it. So it's a biography, not an autobiography. Do you guys know the difference between the autobiography and a biography?
No.
Sort of.
What are your thoughts on it, Madi?
One has auto and one doesn't.
Yes, but there's a difference between them. Besides what the word is.
One of them is like the actual person who, like for a biography, the actual person that's writing it is speaking.
That one is the autobiography.
Yeah. And the
So-
other is that person writing about themselves.
So an autobiography is when a person writes a story about themselves. So I could write an autobiography about myself and I would write about my life. And then a biography is when someone writes about someone else's life. So I could write a biography about Miss Dauphine's life. I wouldn't, but that's the difference there. Autobiography, you write it about yourself. Biography, you write about someone else's life. Okay? Biographical writing has a few specific features. So these are the 3 features that you'll typically see. First, the subject is a real person. It's not a made-up person. It actually tells about real facts and the actual events in someone's life. And there's also a lot of direct quotations, or they use the person's exact words if possible to show their thoughts or feelings. So if we look over in here, there's quite a few quotes from Michaela DePrince herself. They don't just kind of like take whatever words they want to. They use her actual thoughts and feelings in her story. And then finally, the writer may describe other people's views of the subject. He or she may use quotations from people who know the subject well. So they might explore different people in the person's life to get more of an idea of who the person was. So, kind of a few things about a biography. They just use these different features to tell the story about the person in the best way that they can. So we're going to scroll down to the practice part. And this is kind of the independent part that I want you guys to work on. We'll talk about each problem or each question. I'll give you a few minutes and then you'll work on it on your own. So it says work independently to answer the questions and complete the activity. Discuss your responses. We're not going to discuss them. But there is this part that says cite textual evidence to support your answers. Please do that. Pull evidence from the story and put it in your answers. So number 1, there's 2 parts to this one. Part A says, what information about Michaela DePrince does the writer include in paragraphs 1 and 2? So if we look at paragraphs 1 and 2, it's the very first 2 paragraphs. It says, a professional stage debut is a huge event in the life of any ballerina, but Michaela DePrince's recent tour of South Africa also marked the end of an extraordinary journey from her childhood as a war orphan in Sierra Leone. I got out of a terrible place, says DePrince. I had no idea I would be here. I'm living in my dream every single day. So the information that what information is included? I'm not going to give you that answer. So part A. Use complete sentences.
That she's a ballerina.
It's on your own. This is graded. I want you guys to do it on your own. Thank you, though. I appreciate you wanting to answer. So, incomplete sentences, just answer what information is included about Michaela. So you answer that question first, and then part B. There's 2 parts. Why does the author include that information? Okay, so make sure you answer both incomplete sentences. I'm going to give you, we don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to give you 1 minute to just kind of start your ideas. Then we're going to look at number 2. Okay.
I'm done.
All right, good. Okay, we'll do about 30 more seconds. This might be a part of the video that you have to go back and rewatch just to help yourself get through these couple of questions. We're just running out of time, so I'm gonna have you guys finish these up on your own. Okay, so that's number 1. Make sure you answer part A and B and try and cite text evidence from the story. Okay, part 2, number 2 says use the chart to identify examples of each element of biographical writing used in paragraphs 2 through 8. So you're going to use paragraphs 2 through 8. You don't have to go any farther than that. Explain how the author uses each item to add to the reader's understanding of DePrince. So you would open up your chart here. And we have 4 things to fill out. There's 8 boxes total. So this part is 8 points. So the first thing you're going to do is look at what element of the biography you're trying to find. So the first one is facts. You're trying to find facts about Michaela DePrince's life. So you would list a fact here of her life. Whatever fact you can find. And then in this box, you would tell me how that helps me understand Michaela's life. So you're going to do that for each of these. Provide an example in the second box. Does that chart make sense? Does it sound good?
Yeah.
Jada, we can talk about it later. I don't know what that means. So we'll talk about it after. Okay. So this is what you'll do in this box. Sorry, again, we're running out of time, so I'm not going to give you time to work on it. You're going to have to finish this part on your own. So I'm going to close it. Part 3 here has A, B, and C. So there's 3 parts to this one. Part A says, what turning point or major change does the author describe in paragraph 10? So you need to go to paragraph 10 and tell me what is the major change in her life there. Okay, so use a complete sentence. Okay, part B. Why is this moment so important to DePrince? So, why is it important? In a complete sentence, too. I spelled sentence wrong on the first one. Okay, part C. What other moment described in the biography is a turning point in DePrince's life? So you're going to have to read through it and decide and explain why you think there's another turning point in her life. And that's probably multiple sentences. That's a part A, B, and C. So you make sure you complete all 3 parts of that. Okay. Again, I know I'm going a little bit quick, but we are pretty much out of time. So I just wanted to talk to you about number 4. And then I'll let you guys work and head out. So part A, again, 2 parts. Make sure you do both. It says, describe the struggles that DePrince faced after she started studying ballet. So not ballet, ballet. So before, when she was in the war and stuff like that, not the part that we want to describe where she had difficulties. After she came to the US and started studying ballet and dancing, then what sort of struggles did she face? So we have complete sentences there. These. And part B. Oh, cite some specific examples. So use text evidence. Right. So maybe use some direct quotations. She did talk about a few times, kind of near the end of the story, what sort of struggles she faced. So you can use direct quotations there if you want to help us understand. Use different facts that you find, things like that. So again, we don't have time to finish it, but I know you guys can go and finish up these 4 questions on your own. This is a graded section, so you want to make sure you do finish it. I will be checking it out to make sure it gets finished. If not, it's going to be on your list of missing assignments at the end of the week. So take your
Sounds-
time, finish those up. If I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. And if you'd like to stay and work on those for 5 to